What is up, guys? We got a top 16 deck profile here who decided to play a Krennic deck with, what was the base?
Energy Conversion Lab, the green command base.
Awesome. Why did you decide to play Krennic for this particular 4K event?
I think Krennic's overall one of the stronger leaders. One of the big benefits is that his ability is always on. You don't have to use an action or exhaust him to get the benefit of it. So even the turn he dies and goes back to being just a leader instead of a unit, you still get the bonus from it.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps with the action economy. He deploys on 5 resources, and so if you're playing ramp, you can get him on turn 4 or turn 3 with when you start with 4 resources if you're playing super laser tech. So he comes out pretty early. He doesn't hit for a ton. Obviously, he's only hitting for 2 damage, but his healing is huge. He hits when he's over a unit. He has Restore 2. If you can attack with him 2 or 3 times, that can really swing the course of a game. That's 6 extra health. So, you're playing Energy Conversion Lab with only has 25 health, but if you're heal 6, you're technically still you get 31 health base. So. I think he's really well positioned in the meta in terms of having 7 health is, I think, really important. I was originally interested in playing Aiden, but I think she's really bad in the control mirror because she only has that 4 health and she's really vulnerable to takedown. So I think having the 7 health puts him out of range of a lot of attacks. You need a lot of help to kill him. You can't often kill him in just 1 attack unless you're playing Steadfast Battalion and you have your leader out and you ambush it in, that kind of stuff. So I think he's just overall really well positioned. Green and blue, I think, is probably
best color combination.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's the best color combination. Not necessarily this particular combination. I think these are the 2 strongest colors individually and together in the game.
I see.
I think Cunning is obviously really strong, especially with Boba. But yeah, I've always been a control player throughout my career playing card games, so it just really appealed to me. So.
Awesome. Okay. Do you remember your matchups throughout the whole day?
Yeah, so I started off playing a Boba Fett. I played 4 Boba Fetts throughout the day. I went 4-0 against them. The first one was just kind of a standard Boba Green deck. He wasn't playing ECL, which I asked him after the match if he just didn't have one, but he said he actually chose to play the 30 HP base. He felt like the extra HP was important for him against like an aggro matchup, that kind of stuff. Gives him a little extra breathing room. But not having the ECL, the Energy Conversion Lab ambush ability, like I was saying, going back to Krennic with his 7 health, it really makes it really hard for Boba to kill Krennic because they can't ambush in the Steadfast Battalion.
Yeah.
So that was that matchup went in my favor pretty well.
Yeah.
Second round was my only loss in the Swiss portion today. It was against Vader, Command Vader Green. Really strong deck, has a lot of the same tools as this does. And once Vader hits the board, he's kind of just takes over the game. Being able to attack for 5 plus doing extra damage.
2 damage anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere is really strong. That match wasn't even really competitive for me. He kind of just steamrolled me. Even after sideboarding, because the Vader decks play a lot of late game stuff in the main deck, and I play a little bit too, but after sideboarding they just bring in all their late game stuff, and I think that matchup a lot of times is going to come down to who can just draw their bombs consistently. If you're just trading Devastators, trading Avengers, that kind of thing. So and he got that one pretty easily.
Yeah.
Third match was against another Boba. Again, Boba Green. All 4 matches against Boba were Command. I didn't see any double yellow Boba Fett today.
Yeah.
Nothing about that match really stands out. I didn't. It was kind of just played out pretty standard. Nothing. I can't think of anything noteworthy about that match. I never really felt pressured. I think this deck is really has a really decent matchup against Boba Fett, especially if you can have the initiative going into. If you can both ramp, and that way, because Boba Fett also deploys on 5 resources, so if you're both ramping and you both deploy your leader on turn 3 with 4 resources, ramping into 5 resources, pretty much whoever has the initiative going to that turn is really at an advantage if you're both playing Energy Conversion Lab, because you get to ambush in the Steadfast Battalion and kill the opponent's leaders before they can do the same to you. So I try to, whenever possible, I really try to make sure I aggressively mulligan against Boba Fett for Steadfast Battalion.
Nice.
And I also try to have initiative going into that turn if they were able to ramp. So I believe that matchup he actually wasn't able to ramp, so his Boba came out a turn after my Krennic did, which again just allowed me to hold back the Steadfast Battalion in order to take out his leader in one hit.
Yeah.
Because the deploy turn for Boba Fett is really, really strong. Being able to essentially play, what is it, 8 resources worth of cards on turn 4 is really strong. So if you can mitigate that as much as possible, then I think you put yourself in a really good position to win the game and then the match going forward.
Wow, really insightful for that matchup.
Yeah, the match after that was an Iden red deck. It was actually the kind of the mill style of Iden, where they play very few units. Which is kind of problematic for this deck because it turns a lot of my cards just into dead draws. Like Overwhelming Barrage isn't very good. They play a lot of Entrenched and Vigilance. So they, especially if they put Entrenched on Krennic, it's kind of annoying because you're not really getting any value out of his Restore, and he's kind of just stuck in the field. Luckily, you still get the ability for the +1 damage, which is nice. There was actually a little bit of a controversy in that match. In game 3, my opponent won game 1. He milled me out. I lost. I just took too much damage from not being able to draw cards. Game 2, after sideboarding, I was able to just kind of race him, and then going into the end game, I was pretty substantially ahead in the life total, so I was able to just close it out. And then in game 3, we actually ended up going to time, but going into, I think we both ramped. So but going into, I had 7 resources, and I had resource at return, and my opponent had the initiative, so he was about to play a card, and I realized he had 8 resources, which he shouldn't have had because he didn't ramp at all. So I asked him, why he had 8 resources, and he was like, I must just put an extra card down. So he started looking through his resources and tried to figure out which card wasn't supposed to be there, and then he set it aside and was going to put it back in his hand, and I had to call a judge. And so there's a little bit of controversy there, but I ended up pulling out that match. Again, it came down just like late game bombs. I was able to just play a lot of Relentless. Relentless is huge in the control mirror. If you can land a Relentless, it just basically blanks a lot of their cards. Especially control decks, it becomes, once you get past turn 6 or 7, it becomes very difficult to make 2 meaningful plays in the same turn because your cards cost quite a bit. So it's hard to kind of to fit in two plays in the same turn. So if you can get a Relentless out, unless they have some, just some random, like maybe they have a random resupply in their hand, they can play to trigger Relentless's ability and then play the removal spell for Relentless. It's a pretty uphill battle. So whoever can land Relentless first in the control mirror is pretty far ahead.
Pretty fair, an Avenger.
Avenger's really good. Especially against the Iden deck that doesn't play a lot of units, because the few units they do play, if you're, they're playing a lot of bombs, so if you can remove their bombs with Avenger, then they're kind of on the back foot. So other than the little bit of controversy in that match, it was really tight. Game 3, like I said, just came down to, we actually went to time, and I won it on the last action phase, so I was able to, swing with Devastator and Relentless for like 18 damage. So after that, I played another Iden deck. I played Iden Double Blue. It was a really weird deck. He was playing like a lot of some cards I hadn't really seen much of, like Bendu, which is a 5/7 Sentinel, and he reduces the cost of your non-heroes and your non-villainy units by 2. So like theoretically, you can play Vigilance for like 2 resources, which is pretty efficient, but the deck itself wasn't really doing much. It wasn't putting any pressure on me. I think his goal was basically just to mill me out, but I was just able to keep pressure on with the units. He didn't have, I don't know if he just didn't have a lot of removal in his deck or if he just wasn't seeing it, but I was able to keep a pretty stacked board. So I was able to, while he was kind of just fiddling around, for lack of a better word, I guess, trying to do stuff, I was just kept attacking. So I went 2-0 in that match, and never really felt challenged in that one in terms of being pressured to respond. I was pretty much the aggressor in that matchup. Like I said, it was a pretty interesting deck. Most of the double blue Iden decks you see are kind of more of a mill strategy, and he definitely had Vigilance in there and was trying to mill me, but it didn't come together for him. After that, I had 2 more Boba matchups. Again, like I said, Boba Command. I play Boba Saw against Boba Fett so often that unless something kind of strange, or remarkable happens, they'll kind of just blend together. I won both of those matchups. Nothing particular stands out except I was not. It took a lot of convincing for me to come around on Traitorous as a sideboard card against Boba Fett. But actually, I have it in my sideboard today, and it actually came in pretty handy. I was able to steal the Boba Fett unit card a couple times, which is a fairly big swing, and then also 7th Fleet Defender, which is nice because it comes, especially if it still has the shield on it. comes in pretty handy. But again, those matchups just came down to me being able to take his leader off the board before he could get value out of him by using Steadfast Battalion. Like I said, just aggressively mulligan for Steadfast Battalion and make sure I have Krennic out, make sure I can ramp into deploy either ahead of Boba Fett or on the same turn as Boba Fett. Keep initiative as much as possible. My last matchup of the day was actually the only time I saw Sabine, which I was surprised by.
Okay.
8 rounds of Swiss is kind of a long day, so my opponent was pretty tired by the time we got around to playing.
Forced to be in player.
Yeah, it was really. I went at 2-0, but it was really close. Both games were really close. Basically, I won because in both games he played Guerrilla Attack Pod, and I was just immediately able to answer it. One time with a Vanquish, and the other time with a Overwhelming Barrage, and it just took it off the board. So once Sabine gets past like turn 4 or 5, if they're not kind of within striking range with Cause I Believe in, where they can just like burn you, they have a pretty uphill battle trying to come back against that, especially if I can get any kind of healing on the board. Because even healing just a couple times with Krennic or healing with a cargo juggernaut for 4 really just kind of it's for as explosive as a Sabine deck can be early in the game, trying to do 4 more damage late in the game is very difficult for them. Just because I start building up a board and they don't have they can't keep units on the board to attack with, or if they don't have if they're not playing Rebel Assault, stuff like that, then
they run out of gas.
Yeah, they run exactly.
They'll need like a cause we could believe in.
Yeah.
To mill the last 4 damage.
And like I said, their big the big hitter is the Guerrilla Attack Pod, but they didn't get to swing with it at all. So what didn't go. It went in my favor pretty heavily, and I think this deck is pretty well positioned against aggro. I kind of think Leia is the superior aggro deck right now versus Sabine. Personally, I might be in the minority in that, but against Sabine, I feel like I have a pretty good matchup. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my 8 matches for the Swiss rounds today.
Very nice. Let's check out your deck performance.
Sure. So the 2 cost units, I have the. You want to turn this? I have pretty standard kind of Viper Probe Droid. This card's very nice because even though it only has 2 health, it has 3 attack, which means it can trade with pretty much every early unit in the game, especially against aggro. Being able to kill an aggro deck's turn 1 play, I think is very important. I'll very often ECL, especially when I'm going second, I will ECL a Viper Pro Droid on turn 1 just to take them, because the 2 best cards an aggro deck can play on turn 2, in my opinion, are Wing Leader and Fleet Lieutenant. Because it's just a huge damage spike, and especially Wing Leader will put an A-Wing or a Battlefield Marine kind of out of range of being able to be easily killed until a few more turns, and that damage accumulates really fast. So I make it a priority to try and take an aggro deck's turn 1 play off the board ASAP. So plus you get the 1 plate ability, you get to look at your opponent's hand. This is a lot of times people might not appreciate how valuable that can be, but especially like higher level play, being able to know what your opponent has, and also kind of just process of elimination, being able to tell what they resourced by what you're not seeing. If they reveal their hand and they've got a bunch of 3 cost cards, and then you get to turn 3 or 4 and you haven't seen those cards, you can kind of logically guess that they resource those cards. So I really value the being able to look at my opponent's hand. Like I said, the ability to
and you can also note take in this event.
Yeah, exactly. You can note take in this game. So I definitely recommend that. Inferno 4 is kind of a controversial choice amongst Krennic players, I think. I highly value the scry, if you want to call it scry, or being able to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and kind of rearrange them. I think it's more valuable later on in the game than it is early in the game. But the main reason I like Inferno 4 versus something like I don't actually have Scout Blade Pursuers in this deck, which is a pretty I'd say it's almost a staple unit for Krennic. I don't like that unit too much because it kind of relies on having a Death Trooper on turn 2 to get a lot of value out of it, and the odds of having both in your opening hand are fairly low. What I really like about Inferno 4 is, again, I think it's a very good card against an aggro matchup. Going back to, like I said, about Wing Leader being kind of aggro's best turn 2 play. If you are playing on Inferno 4 turn 1, being able, and they play in Wing Leader, being able to take out the Wing Leader with your Inferno 4 brings Power of the Dark Side back online. So even though they buffed their Battlefield Marine or the A-Wing or whatever up to 5 and you 8-5 damage, if you have power on the dark side of your hand, you can just take it out.
Got it.
Whereas if you were playing something like Scout Bike Pursuer, I think that's the name of it, the Scout Bike, the 1/4 that has grit.
Yeah.
If you're playing that unit instead, you have you can't attack their space units. So obviously, so you're kind of just between a rock and a hard place there, in terms of they now have a buffed unit, they have a unit in space you can't answer. So yeah, I really like, especially if you take out, like if you do that and you take out the wing leader, he comes up to 3 power. Because of the Krennic's ability, so now he's actually able to take out another space unit. Like he can take out a red 3, he can take out another A-wing because he's doing 3 damage.
I see.
So I think that unit is very, very good against an aggro matchup, which I was expecting to see a lot of today, and I actually didn't. But yeah, between being able to answer aggro and being able to get the deck filtering ability, I really like that unit. And I don't think there's a ton of great 2-cost units in the game for Krennic right now. I think when set 2 comes out, this will probably end up being phased out.
Yeah.
But right now, I think it's one of the better ones in my opinion. So
Nice. Okay.
Power of the Dark Side is just
Great removal.
yeah, it's great removal. Especially if you can put your opponent into a position where they have to choose between deploying their leader onto an empty board and potentially just getting blown up by Power of the Dark Side, or just not deploying their leader. I think it's very valuable. The ability also to, as I said, going back to what I said earlier about control decks not being able to often make 2 meaningful plays in the late game. If you're just getting into a position where you're just trading Star Destroyers back and forth, it's a very efficient answer to a big unit, or even like a reinforcement walker, because they often won't be able to play a second unit. So yeah, it's a great card in itself, and it has a lot of utility, a lot of flexibility. So I definitely play 3 of those. Resupply is a card that I don't really like. I understand the importance of it, but I will also be very happy when the meta kind of moves away from like 2 of the best 3 decks in the format playing 6 ramp cards. It's vital, but it's also, in my opinion, just kind of suboptimal, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Being able to ramp is very important with the limited card pool we have right now. But like once that expands, I think ramp will become. I think it'll still have its place, but I think it'll be a lot less common than it is now. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
for a while, I was only running 2 resupply in the main board, but I went up to 3 for today.
I want to see it.
Cell block guard, just kind of all around solid unit. You can fetch him with Vader when Vader comes into play. So if you're kind of under some pressure from aggro or something, and you play a Vader and you get out a cell block guard, not only are you killing a unit with Vader, but you're getting the Sentinel and cell block guard. 3/3 again, 3 power is pretty important. I trade with a lot of units. A lot of people like Emperor's Royal Guard in this spot instead of cell block guard. I prefer this personally, just because I don't have to worry about having a official unit in play to trigger the Sentinel. I think it might be a wash in the long run, but yeah, I just play this in.
Is Krennic an official?
He is an official, so yeah,
Okay.
if you have the Krennic out, Emperor's Royal Guard is online.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. The ubiquitous Super Laser Technician.
Yeah, 6 of them.
Not much to say about that. It's a good ramp card, does 2 damage. I think one of the things people underestimate about this, or I think a combo that a lot of people don't tend to recognize maybe, is being able to. Nothing sucks worse than having a Super Laser Technician stranded on a board where you can't get him killed. So playing a Death Trooper and killing your own Super Laser Technician with the 2 damage, the trigger from Death Trooper, I think is a pretty solid play that I find myself doing fairly often.
All right.
But also, just even that 2 damage, there's kind of a couple of points, break points of health and power in this game. 3 is one of them, and kind of like 5-7 is another one, where a lot of the units that see heavy play will have like 7-5 health or 3 health. So if you do just have a random super laser on the board, and you, like a Vader, for instance, if your opponent plays a Vader and he attacks into, for instance, Steadfast Battalion, he's only got 2 health left. A super laser station can take him out. So I think it's most of the time I'm going to resource him if I see him after like turn 3. But that 2 damage, you know, if you fetch one of these with Vader, like, it's not the worst thing in the world because you get to ramp again into your late game cards. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, everybody knows really. Death Trooper, one of my favorite cards in the game.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing Energy Conversion Lab. This essentially hits for 6, yeah, which kills a lot of you. It kills Cassian, kills Leia. So I think one of the reasons that this deck is positioned well in the meta is because it has a lot of efficient ways to deal with a lot of leaders. Any leader that has like 6 health or less right now is in a really tough spot. I think they're kind of on the back foot a lot. That's why I think Boba Fett is so popular, because his stats are very, very efficient.
5, yeah.
So yeah, being able to ECL this in for 6 damage is very very nice. His stats are solid, especially with Krennic. You know, generally you're gonna use his one plate ability on himself to do the damage.
Yeah.
But being able to do it again on something else and get that extra +1 power from that unit being damaged with Krennic, you know, late game especially, can kind of be nice, and it kind of changes the combat math. The opponent wasn't expecting, you know, they thought their unit was safe, and all of a sudden you're gonna, you know, a bonus power. So pretty good utility out of that card. Consortium Star Viper is just, yeah, goes along with the theme of healing with Krennic. So restore 2 on it. Stats are good. It takes out aggro cards, takes out red 3, takes out A-wings. It's pretty bad against red.
7th fleet.
Yeah, or 7th fleet defender, yeah. And also the Imperial Interceptor, because you play your Imperial Interceptor and it just kills it.
Yeah.
It can be kind of fiddly to make sure you have initiative in order to get the healing, but it is a great turn 2 play against aggro. Like I said, if you're ECLing, especially if you know, a fairly common and also a pretty good play against aggro if you don't start with the initiative is just to not play a turn 1 card and just claim initiative. That way you have it going to turn 2, and you can ECL in Consortium Star Viper to kill their A-wing, something like that. And so even if they, you know, ping you with Sabine at the end of turn 1, you're healing that damage. So all around solid card. I do sideboard it out quite a bit, especially against like something like Boba Fett, like you're saying 7th fleet defender. It's not very good against. So I'd say maybe about half the time I end up sideboarding it out, but it's an overall solid card. And I think when the healing comes into play, it's very nice. You're always appreciative to have more healing. So System Patrol Craft, I run 2 of these in the main deck. The stats, obviously, it stops aggro. Going back to 7th fleet defender, you know, you can take 2 hits. You can eventually trade with 7th fleet defender. The Space Sentinel is just pretty useful in general. I think it's also very nice to have, because it combos pretty well with Overwhelming Barrage, especially if you can get damage on it, because now it turns into 6 powerful Overwhelming Barrage, which is enough to kill quite a few things in the game. So the utility of this, combined with the potential to, you know, if your opponent isn't playing heavy in the space lane, but they're kind of controlling the ground, it gives you a way to get a unit to stick on the board for Overwhelming Barrage or something like that. So, like I say, yeah, 2 in the main board. Takedown, again, a removal spell. It takes out Sabine, which is probably the biggest reason it's in the deck. It also is good to finish off higher health characters that, you know, like something like maybe like a Vader that attacked into something, you can just finish it off. It's also great against Iden, obviously. Nothing sucks worse than playing an Iden and having it immediately getting takedown. Yeah, the fact that you get to choose, you know, unlike Power of the Darksaber, where your opponent gets to choose the unit, you get to choose what unit you hit with this. So it's very efficient. I don't think, maybe if I'm playing like an Iden deck that's, you know, very light on units, maybe I'll sideboard it out. But generally, I'm pretty happy to see this card whenever I draw it, or if I have it in my opening hand. I'm pretty happy, especially against like an aggro deck or a deck that plays a lot of like cheaper units that it's going to have targets for. Vanquish is kind of just your baseline removal spell. I only have 2 in the main board. It's a tad bit slow at 5. Generally, you want to be doing something a little more impactful on 5 than just removing a single unit from the board. Especially if you're using it on something that costs less than Vanquish does. You know, if you're using it to remove a 3 or 4 cost unit, it feels pretty bad. It's very, very good against other control decks, obviously, that weren't big units, because if you're taking out something that costs 9 or 10 with it, it's very efficient. It's a key card, I think, against Boba Fett, because you need to kill Fett's fire spray as soon as it hits the board. So I'm always looking for a vanquish against Boba Fett. I have a third one on the sideboard for control mirrors. Steadfast Battalion, I think, is one of the most important cards in this deck and in the meta right now, especially with the prevalence of Boba Fett. The fact that it deploys at the same, with the fact that it costs 5 and Krennic deploys on 5 resources, the synergy there is obvious, and the fact that if you have your leader out, it kills Boba Fett in one hit is awesome. It can kill an opposing Krennic in one hit. It kills basically every leader in the game, except like Palpatine and I guess Vader in one hit. Or maybe Thrawn, I forget what Thrawn's health is, because nobody plays Thrawn.
Nobody plays it.
One of the I think something that's very often overlooked with this card is that if you don't need the +2/+2 on it, if you don't need to give the +2/+2 to itself to kill a leader, I think it can often be very useful to give that to another unit instead. Especially if I already have something like Krennic on the board, because now not only am I going to kill something with the Steadfast Battalion and maybe get some overwhelm, but I'm also buffing Krennic, and if Krennic's, for instance, already damaged, now Krennic's dealing 5 damage on an attack. So you're potentially killing 2 units in the same turn instead of just 1. Obviously getting the Orc to overwhelm damage is very good. This card is also very good against it. It heavily punishes aggro, because if they're playing a lot of small guys, then you can just, they're taking 5 damage, 4 damage to the face when you're taking out one of their units. So yeah, I think this is one of the most important cards in the game right now. Gideon Hask is a card that I don't actually end up playing very often. I sideboard him out quite a bit, but if you can stick him and start killing your opponent's units, he gets out of control real quick. The fact that you can give the experience unit to any guy you have on the board is very nice. Because like I was saying, going back to kind of like the break points for health and power in this game, even just adding 1 or 2 experience tokens to a 2 or 3 quest unit really changes the capabilities of the units you have on the board to deal with your opponent's threats. He's also a pretty decent engine conversion lab target if you don't need the Steadfast Battalion, because immediately being able to come and kill something and then get the experience token to give to another guy or to himself is very nice.
Oh, you can give it to himself. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. I run 2 in the main deck. A lot of people like Ruck in this spot instead of Gideon. I think Ruck is a good card, but I think he also suffers from a problem that I didn't come up with this term, but kind of the ECL tax, where he's best when you can ECL him into play, and he's not very good when you can't. I don't often find myself still having NG conversion lab available when I want to play a Gideon, or when I want to play a Ruck rather. So I prefer Gideon. Like I said, I don't play him a ton, and I also sideboard him out. But if you can stick him, and he gets out of control real quick. Overwhelming Barrage, I think, is one of the best 3 cards in the game. The fact that you can give a unit +2/+2, wipe something off or multiple things off the board, and then still have that unit available to attack later on in the turn is amazing. It turns even a 2 or 3 cost unit into a threat that can take out a much higher cost unit from your opponent. It puts your unit out of range of your opponent's attacks. If you have an unfavorable board state, it allows you to turn, instead of just getting your unit wiped off the board, it turns it maybe into a trade, or even into not being able, and your opponent not being able to attack your unit at all because they'll just die instead. So yeah, everybody knows how good this card is. It's one of the best cards in the game. I got obviously 3 main board, because I'm never sideboarding that out. Unless I guess maybe I'm playing like against the Iden Mill.
Yeah, Iden Red.
Cargo Juggernaut is I really like this card. The 6 cost spot in Krennic there's not a lot of great options. I guess the other one that a lot of people play is kind of the Academy Defense Walker, which is a Sentinel that gives all your damage units an experience token that comes into play. Which is it's decent, but I find with Krennic I'm often making trades instead of just trying to keep guys on the board, so I didn't get a ton of value out of it. I think the healing 4, Krennic's a blue unit, so if you have Krennic out and you play this, you heal 4. Healing 4 again is really good. it's basically cancels out a for a cause, I believe, if you're playing aggro or something like that.
Yeah, 4 is a lot.
Being shielded is obviously very nice. It prevents it from being taken out by something like Overwhelm Barrage. The fact that it's still available to use with PPG Conversion Lab because it costs 6 is nice. It's not the best unit for that, the best target for that, but occasionally it comes in handy, especially since he has fairly high health and B shield. Because then one thing people might not realize too is that you can actually, if you play this unit with PPG Conversion Lab, you can resolve the ambush before you put the shield on it.
Yeah.
So you can ambush it in, kill a guy, and maybe he only has 1 health left, but you put the shield on him, so it turns into a pretty high value proposition in terms of.
I've never heard of that play.
I like it mostly for the healing, but it's also a pretty decent unit on its own right. I play 1 Count Dooku in my deck. A lot of people don't. I think it's pretty good against Boba Fett decks because they have a lot of targets for it. 17 defender, something like a cartel smuggler, which isn't great value, but just getting around shields I think is pretty valuable in its own right. I wish you could kill a guy that has 5 or less health. That'd probably be broken.
It's like
but
takedown.
4 is a really kind of a little bit of an awkward number. But again, he's shielded. So yeah, I wouldn't take a lot to convince me to take him out of the deck, but I kind of like having him in just for a little bit of something different. A lot of people aren't expecting to see a Count Dooku. And then, instead of playing 3 Darth Vaders, I played 2 Darth Vaders and 1 Count Dooku.
I see.
Vader's obviously a great unit. Like I said, it wouldn't take me a lot to convince me to put a 3rd Vader in instead of Count Dooku. Vader is... The fact that Vader can kill a guy and then put something like a Sentinel on the board, if you get Cell Block Guard, is really valuable. He hits that kind of magical number of 5 damage, so he kills a lot of things when he comes into play. And he's only going to get better when with a bigger card pool, with a larger card pool. He's only going to get better because you have more options to fetch out of your deck with his ability.
I agree.
So I think as strong as this card is now, I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And
the price tag.
Yeah, the price tag.
It's
Price tag's out of control, but so everybody will know how good Darth Vader is. Reinforcement Walker, very important card in the deck. I'm very excited for this card. I don't know if people have seen the spoilers for the set 2 coming out, but there's a card costs 1 and gives any unit ambush, no matter the cost.
Timely reinforcement.
Timely intervention, yeah.
Oh yeah, timely intervention.
I mean, being able to ambush in a reinforcement walker, essentially heal 6, kills. It's just it's going to be kind of nuts. But yeah, it's a very important card in the deck in my opinion. Whether you're healing or drawing the card you look at when you attack or play it, either way you're getting great value.
Yeah.
I can't count the number of times that this card has brought me back from the brink against like aggro decks where they have no answer for it and you just start healing 3 a return or drawing answers.
And the stats are a meme.
Yeah, the stats are great, especially if you're using it like with something like an Overwhelming Barrage, and it's damage.
6 and 9.
Yeah, so you pump it up to an 8, 11, or if it has damage on it, it becomes a 9 because of Krennic's ability. So yeah, you're getting quite a bit of value out of it if you use Overwhelming Barrage on it. Super Laser Blast, I have 1 in the main board.
Okay.
It's not a card I love. I think it can be kind of awkward to use. It's basically your entire turn.
Yeah.
And I find myself often being forced to decide, do I want to let my opponent make an attack before I play it, in hopes that maybe they'll play, if my opponent doesn't know it's coming or doesn't think I have it in my hand, they might play a unit instead of attacking first. So I kind of, it comes into play most often against decks that want to play on curve the entire game. So like if you're going if you're playing against like a Heroism blue deck and they're playing Luke, Obi-Wan Luke, it can be kind of a blowout against kind of high statted tough to kill units like that. It's kind of bad against aggro, obviously, because it costs a lot. I mean, if you get it off against aggro, if they U-wing reinforcement and then you super laser blast, it's kind of bad for them, obviously. But yeah, it's a card that I don't love, but I play it because I think it's kind of a necessary evil at this point. But yeah, it can be kind of awkward sometimes. Avenger, going back to that timely intervention card, if you can ambush an Avenger and get his one played in on attack effects, being able to. The only downside is that your opponent gets to choose which card it is. So you are playing against a deck that can, especially like maybe like a deck like Vader. I just played against Vader, and they have some pretty cheap units, so they're able to play a bigger guy in, like just some random one cost, like a Stormtrooper that costs 1 just to get another guy in play. So it can be played around fairly well, but the stats, if you're getting to attack with it a couple times, that's kind of closing out the game by itself. So and if you're ramping and your opponent, if you can play this 2 turns early, then it's obviously really good. Yeah, it's just an all-around solid unit.
I played 2 copies. I
I have 2 copies of that in the main board, and then I have 1 Devastator. I think this card is really, really good against control mirrors. Being able to answer your opponent's Avenger or their Reinforcement Walker, their Relentless, something like that. One of the best things about it is that it gets around Relentless. Instead of having to use 2 event cards to try and kill something try and kill Relentless, you just play that instead and just blow it off the board. The fact that it has Sentinel is a lot of people overlook. A lot of people don't realize it has Sentinel, and granted, it doesn't often come into play because if you're playing a 10-10-10 space unit, they probably don't have a lot of stuff in the space to attack you with anyway. But it can come in kind of handy, especially if you're playing something like, I know it's not a very popular deck, but something like Hera, where they're playing Ghost or something like that, where they just have an annoying space unit on the board that has some experience tokens on it or whatever. Or if they're playing like a Redemption or something weird like that. So yeah, just being able to just blow something up of your choice is really nice. The stats are good. It's got Sentinel, it's got Overwhelm, which again, not super relevant because you're probably not going to have a lot of targets to attack with it, but if they have some kind of random Sentinel, you can still do quite a bit of damage to their base. So,
okay.
Yeah, this is my split of starter stories is 2 Avengers and 1 Devastator.
Let's check out your side deck real quick.
Yeah, so my sideboard, I have a single restock in here, Vigilance. As you can probably tell by the price, has seen quite a surge recently. It's a pretty good card.
Is it a common?
This is a common. Vigilance is a legendary.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, this is basically there to just
counter that card.
Yeah, to refill my deck. The nice thing about this card is that events in this game, when you play an event, the card itself immediately goes to your discard, so you can actually get restock back when you play a restock. So you're basically playing restock, choosing 3 other cards in addition to restock, and shuffling all those back in, or putting those in your deck.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it.
You only need 1 copy then.
Yeah, you kind of only need 1 copy. Now, if your opponent is playing Vigilance and they make you discard your 1 copy of restock, it sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why that's in there, basically just to hedge against Vigilance.
I had no idea. Cool.
Make an Opening is a card that I wish I could find. I have 2 on my sideboard. I wish I could find room for 3. I think it's a very good card against Boba Fett. It's kind of deceptive in that it's not super good against like aggro decks, because only giving -2/-2 doesn't really kill a ton of cards in like Sabine aggro, because a lot of their stuff has 3/3 stats. But there's also a lot of edge cases where, again, going back to like a Darth Vader, if they ambush in your Darth Vader, and kill one of your units, and Vader only has like 2 health left, and you play this, you can kill Vader and heal some health. And the healing, I'll often sideboard this in against matchups that the -2/-2 isn't super relevant against, but I want the healing from it. It's kind of like a Repair is like a 1 cost event that heals 3. This is potentially going to kill something,
or you get 2 actions in 1 card,
and it also heal you for 2 damage. So all around solid card. I have a 3rd System Patrol Craft on the sideboard. This is again just kind of an anti-aggro kind of thing. Maybe I want another Space Sentinel. So a 3rd Vanquish in the sideboard. Again, it's basically for control. Just sideboard it in when you have to kill a bunch of big stuff. I have 2 Traitorous in my sideboard. Like I said, it took a lot of convincing me to come around this card, but I think I really like it now. The first time I read it, I was like, well, I'm going to spend 5 resources to take a guy that only costs 3 resources. It doesn't seem very efficient, but there's a lot of solid units you can take with it, especially if you're taking. I often sideboard it against Boba Fett, because if you can take their Boba Fett unit card with it, you get a lot of shenanigans with his ability of being able to deal damage, attack, and stuff like that. So it's a pretty decent card. I have a 2nd Super Laser Blast. That's I don't know. I could probably be convinced pretty easily to take that out of the sideboard. And then.
The Relentless.
Yeah, this card is MVP in the control mirror. If you can land a Relentless, your opponent's gonna have a very hard time coming back from that.
Yeah.
Its stats are again very good. It trades with an Avenger, so but it doesn't trade with a Devastator. So the fact that it blinks any event they want to play, it turns off Super Laser Blast.
I wish it was any event. It's actually the first event.
What's that?
It's the first event that gets null and void.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish it was any event that you could choose.
So yeah, it's that card is the MVP in the control mirror. I want to see this card as soon as I want to play this card as soon as I have mana resources pretty much every time, because it's just it makes so many cards in your opponent's hand dead cards, and even against non-control matchups, maybe something more mid-range, they're just not going to have two events in their hand very often that they can afford to play on the same turn.
Yeah.
So if and especially if you play it after they play something and have used some of their resources of the turn, they're not going to be able to play too. So being able to turn off like an overwhelming barrage is really great. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Hey, thank you for the deck profile. It was really in depth, and I really enjoyed all the wisdom that you had accumulated on each of the cards.
yeah, no problem.
All right, cool.
Thanks for
And I'll
having me.
hopefully see you more in the future for bigger events.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you.